Howdy folks, and welcome back to another episode of Tyria Talk. My name is Richie, and this show is all about the awesome sauce that is Guild Wars 2. Now let's get into today's topics. I'd like to cover a couple different things. We're going to talk about the skill system in Guild Wars 2 and the Sidekick system. So let's get started. Now, the skill system is quite different in Guild Wars 2 than it is in most MMOs that are out there. But if you're familiar with Guild Wars 1, then it's fairly similar. So what happens in a lot of MMOs today, whether you're playing World of Warcraft or Rift, Lord of the Rings Online, they start you off with a couple skills. When you create a first level character, you'll have like one or two abilities, and then slowly but surely you start to add more and more every time you gain a level. And what happens is by the time you're max level, you just like boom, you have abilities all over your screen. You need action bars over here, you need action bars over here. You know, you just get overwhelmed by the number of abilities that you have to cram onto your screen. And the funny thing is, when you're actually playing the game, you probably only have 4 to 8 core abilities that you ever use very consistently. And then you have a whole bunch of very situational or maybe buffs or something like that you don't use that often. And I guess it's okay to have that many abilities, and it's what we're used to. I guess sometimes a new player that's brand new to the genre might be a little bit overwhelmed as they start getting levels. They're like, what does that ability do? So Guild Wars kind of takes a different approach with it. And what they do is they give you 10 action bar slots, 10 spots where you can put your skills in. And those are the ones you have active at any one time. So it's kind of like equipping certain skills from a long list, and then you have your 10 down there that you can use. And this is how they kind of break it down. Your first 5 are your weapon skills, and these are completely determined by which weapons you have equipped in your hands. Okay, so 5 skills are picked from the weapon that you have currently equipped. So let's say you have like a sword and a shield equipped. You might have some abilities that are more defensive and make use of the shield. You might have like a shield bash or something like that. And then a couple of abilities are going to be, based on the sword. And it's also relevant to what class you are. So if you have a sword and shield class like a warrior, those skills are going to be different than if you have a sword and shield equipped on something like a guardian. And the other cool thing is you can actually have two different weapon sets equipped, so that you can swap back and forth between those two weapons, and those first 5 weapon skills will change with it. So you can have like longbow as your second weapon set, and then you'll have ranged attacks as those first 5 abilities. So I think that covers that. I hope that wasn't too confusing. So that's the first 5 slots, weapon slots. Then you have another 5 slots that you have more control over. There are 3 skill slots that are going to be like utility type spells that you can pick from all the ones that are available to your profession or your race. And these could be stuff like, and I don't know this specifically, but I'm imagining there's stuff like a spell interrupt. Or maybe there's an ability that makes you run really fast for a short amount of time, things like that. So that you got 3 slots to fill up with those kind of skills. And then you're going to have a healing skill, where you're going to have to choose from a list of your healing spells. Every class has to have a healing spell equipped in this slot. And just for the record, I'm going to do another Tyria Talk episode about this. There's no dedicated healer class in Guild Wars 2. So everybody's going to come to the table with some sort of heal spell and or ability. And then the final slot that you're going to have, like I'm actually like gesturing down here like I actually have an action bar like on my desk here. No, I got to stop that. That's stupid. The last ability spot is your elite spell, as your elite skill slot. And these are basically like your superpowers. These are like, uber flashy effects, usually on a long cooldown. I mean, this is like your action hero move. I mean, you hit this move, something cool happens, and then you should say something like, "Let off some steam, Bennett." This is your action hero moment. So you got 5 weapon skills, 3 utility skills. You've got your elite skill and your heal skill. And again, I'm doing this thing down here, and I bumped my microphone. That was probably really loud. I apologize. Okay. So, in any case, so you have your big list of all these abilities and skills that you might have access to, and then you got to narrow it down. And these are the 10 that you set out with when you go on your adventure, or you go exploring. So it's kind of great because you still have the complexity of having all those choices, but it gets narrowed down. And okay, this is what you've chosen for the time being, and you've got to make do. What's kind of neat about that is, like, for example, I play World of Warcraft, and I'm a Death Knight in there. And I play an Unholy Spec Death Knight. That's the talents I choose that kind of makes up who I am. Now, if I run into any other Unholy Death Knight, we're going to use the exact same abilities. In fact, if we're using different abilities, you're basically playing the game wrong. And while that's okay and everything, and it's what I'm used to. This is kind of interesting to me because maybe I'll play a profession in this, and maybe there's a skill or two that really I like using. I think it fits my play style a lot, and I can be different than other people. I'm sure there's still going to be some cookie cutter builds and stuff like that in this, where it's like, okay, you should have these 10 skills or these 3 skills here, but there is room for kind of playing around with it. The design, it actually reminds me a little bit, and this might be a weird comparison, but it kind of reminds me of like playing like Magic the Gathering or like a collectible card game, in that you have your huge box of cards, right? You might have thousands and thousands of cards, but when you're going to actually sit down and play a game with someone, a match, you have to narrow those thousands of cards down to like a deck of 40 or a deck of 60 cards. And that narrowing down process, there's a lot of strategy in that, and it's fun to kind of see what you can come up with. So it's kind of that similar. It's got that similar kind of design vibe to it, and I really think that's compelling. That gives you compelling choices for the game. So I like how this is set up. I think it's going to be a pretty cool experience overall. The other thing that they've said, which I think is really neat, is those 5 skills that are dedicated to your weapon. You can actually interact with the environment a lot in this game. So if you pick up like a boulder, those first 5 abilities that usually have your weapon skills in it are going to be replaced with like some things you can do with the boulder. Like you can hurl it at the enemy, or if you're like an elementalist, you can actually like launch it and like set it on fire, so it's kind of like a meteor. So and you can interact with catapults and different types of siege weaponry, and then your action bar gets replaced with new abilities. I think that's amazing. I think that's pretty awesome. I think that's all I have to say about the skill system. Okay, cool. Let's move on. The next thing I want to talk about is the Sidekick system, and I think this is either unique or very close to unique. I can't think of, off the top of my head, another MMO that emulates this exactly. But let me just describe what it is. So again, they try to solve issues in MMOs, or at least change things up a bit. So right now, if you want to play an MMO, there's an interesting challenge in that they're infinitely more fun to play with friends. Go figure. A massive online game, more fun with friends. Okay. Yeah, but the problem is there's usually a huge time sink involved. And unless your group of friends all gets into the game at the exact same time, you could have a situation where one or more people have been playing the game for months or years, and then suddenly one of your friends, one of your straggler friends suddenly decides, hey, I want to get into this. Which is great, but there's usually this long lead time to get them caught up. And during this catch-up process, you can try to help them out, I guess. You can, make a brand new character and go through the experience with them. But that's not really, that's not exactly what you want to be doing in most situations. You want to be playing your uber max level character. And you can bring your uber max level character to try to help, but then you're just killing everything with one shot, and, the person that's getting into the game, they're not learning anything because you're just doing everything for them. And so really, there's no perfect solution to this, but what winds up happening is you have to wait weeks, maybe months, for that person to catch up. Okay, so the Sidekick system is Guild Wars 2's way of kind of handling that situation a little differently. Basically, what happens in Guild Wars 2 is if you take your max level character and you go to like a newbie or a low level area, your character is going to scale down in power to match that level. Now, they did say something, they gave an example, something like if you're like a max level character and you wander into a level 5 type area, you're going to be brought down to around level 8. So you're still going to be powerful for the region, but you're not lopping off heads with one shot. So you can now bring your max level character and try to help your friend out. And you're going to be similar in power. It's going to be somewhat challenging to you. It's still going to be a great learning experience for your friend. And you guys can play together like instantly. There's no waiting involved. What's interesting is the converse is also true. If you take that newbie character and you bring them to your higher level zones, they're going to scale upwards in power. Now, they're not going to have all the skills unlocked for a max level character if you take them there, and they're not going to have the weapons and equipment, that a max level character would have. But still, their powers will scale up and they won't be completely unaffected in that area. And that's just kind of interesting, that they would just allow this, this seamless kind of play. Just play with the people you want to play with. Come on, let's just go. It doesn't matter. It's an interesting design choice. Now, the scaling down in power, if you go into a lower level area, is not optional. It absolutely happens automatically, and it's also while it does solve this playing with friends issue, really it's also meant to solve any kind of griefing that could be involved. Griefing is something, anti-griefing measure, if you will. You don't want some max level characters ruining the experience for low level characters, just by killing everything in sight and, ruining the joy of these dynamic events. So that's another reason why they're putting this in. But the scaling up is optional. If you don't want to scale up when you hit one of these other zones, you have the option to avoid that. It's very unique. I have some mixed feelings about it. I think that the problem for me is not something you can do anything about. This is obviously a game mechanic. This is not something that can really, maybe they will try to justify it in game, but I don't see how you really can. So it's kind of hard to get immersive and into the game world when this kind of mechanic's in place. It is a little jarring. There's no way to explain it. It's not a huge criticism. I think its benefits might still outweigh that. It's a little quirky. And then we'll have to see how it actually is implemented, if it's just this seamless type thing. I think that the way that they do their skills, in that you have your set 10 skills, and, it really lends itself to being able to move up and down, because whatever 10 skills you have there can just scale in power. The numbers get more powerful, the durations of the abilities get longer, or they can scale down easily. You try to do this something like this in a game like World of Warcraft, and it's kind of like, well, what do you mean I'm suddenly max level? Well, okay, so you're just going to throw like 30 new skills at me, and I don't know what they do, or if you're going the reverse, you're just going to take away everything I can do in my class, and now I only have 2 buttons again. So I don't know if it would work in a lot of MMOs, but the way they did the skill system. And again, I'm looking down here, like I have this bar down here. I cannot stop it. Okay, I have this bar down here. All right, we just have to accept that. But by doing that skill system, they really allow for this kind of sidekick sliding scale thing to actually take effect. It's going to be very interesting to see how it works. I like the spirit that you can just jump in and play with your friends. It's definitely going to be something that I think people will enjoy. And like I said, it's unique, so we got to see how it plays out. So that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments field below. And if you would like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please do so. You will be notified when future videos are released. You can also follow me on Twitter at Richie Procopio. And again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.